Hi, I am Jamie D. And this is a class designed to help you understand the slide and glide movements that are offered in a lot of the classes, and to help give you an understanding and the opportunity to visually watch me go through the cueing as I'm doing. If you're confused, a lot of these movements are very simple, but to try and cue them and to understand them while you're on the floor on your mat can be very challenging. And so my intention is to give you the basics of what these movements are, because we build on these movements. We start with undulations, and then you can add on to keep going for many more things. And so if you have an understanding of the basics, you will hopefully be helped out in classes where they offer even more, and I will probably do more than one of these. So most of this work is done on your backs, and it's intentionally done on your back so that your parasympathetic nervous system can drop. What you want to do is just to let everything be settled. And if you notice yourself needing to lift your head up a lot, you kind of undo any settling that you've done. So that's hard. It's hard to keep your head down when you want to look, but just try to keep your head down as much as you can when you're practicing. So this video will give you the opportunity to watch and then hopefully try it again without looking and just become more familiar with these movement patterns. So often the teacher will say, put your blanket over your mat. And that can seem pretty basic to a lot of people, but some people first time in a yoga studio wonder, what does that mean? So we're going to put the blanket over the mat. So just taking your blanket so that it's folded in half, so the long edges are available to cover your mat. So you've got fringe on the top, fringe on the bottom, and then your blanket is right over your entire mat. Now, if you have a long enough blanket, you could tuck the ends of it underneath your mat, especially at the foot end. That can help with some of the hip slides, but that's not necessary. So blanket over your mat, and that's what teachers mean. So then for today's class, just as a prop, we're going to use one block and then a hand towel. So for this hand towel, it's mainly used to help you understand what I'm talking about when I say press your back down. So we're going to take your hand towel, and then you can fold it in half again, and then roll it. So you just want it in a roll. So a nicely rolled hand towel. And then the teachers will most often say, come to lie down on your blanket setup. And that's blanket and your mat. Have your props handy. So when you go down, you want to try to have your props close so you don't need to lift your head and get up and get them. So I'm going to make sure I've got my towel and the block. And then we'd like to empty out before we begin. So you want to just let your body relax. So I usually like to take a few full body stretches before I settle in, just to go with the opposite. So just stretching it out and just feeling the limits of my body today. How does it feel back and forth? And then when you empty, you can let yourself relax. So you have your arms by your sides. Legs are kind of wherever they landed, and let your feet just flop. And then feel your back body on the blanket setup. And just notice any physical sensations that you have while you're here. So we all have different things that happen in our lives every day. Today could be a day where You might have a pain in a foot or toe or hip or shoulder. Just notice that. So just take another minute to drop and settle before I actually begin with this basics flow. So a few things to keep in mind, just stay down and relax. Don't try to compare yourself to the person next to you or to the way I do it on my blanket setup, because your body is different than my body. And the last thing we want to do is feel like we're not doing it right, because as long as you're moving and as long as you've kind of got the idea and doing it the way that it feels good, you're doing it. So don't judge yourself in a way that's going to create a sense of, well, I can't do this, even before you start. So come to the movement, come to the class without, and the idea that I am doing this and the way I do it is right for me. Take 3 more nice full breaths and feel your belly expand. So actually take your hands right onto your belly. So the palms of your hands are resting on your belly. So that when you breathe, you actually feel a rise in the belly and the skin and the whole area of the belly. And then as you exhale, just notice the change. Do that one more time. Good. And so now bend your knees and place your feet on the mat, which oftentimes is how we start. And so when we bend the knees, it usually means your feet are on the mat and your knees are facing up. So just for the sake of being able to feel your spine, we're going to take this rolled towel and place it underneath your back. So actually lift your pelvis up and then place this rolled blanket under your back so that it's right above your hips where your back has a natural arch. So you have a curve in your low back, you have a curve in your mid back that goes the other way, you have a curve in your neck that's the same as your low back. So feel the arching away from the mat and the towel supporting you. So just take a moment to breathe and let your belly go with the breath. And then when you exhale, just feel into the towel a little more. Don't press too hard. Good. And just pause for a moment. So I'll be interjecting some of the main things to keep in mind when you do this type of work. And one of the big ones is don't force. So when you're breathing, don't try and push it so that you're really filling your belly and expanding it. Just let it happen, maybe a little bit to the edge, but don't try and force anything. Just kind of find where you can take it for you. So now, one of the first movements that we do is called pelvic undulation. So I'm going to explain undulation 1. So it's a lifting and a lowering of your low back. And it's a movement of your pelvis. So just take your finger points below where your hands were on your belly. So they're right in the top of your pelvis area. There's some little bumps there if you can find them. Otherwise, just rest your hands right on the top of your pelvis. So they're not behind you or on the side, right up in the front side, off to the edge. So now when you inhale, you're going to lift your spine away from the towel And notice that your fingers kind of going away from you. And then when you exhale, you'll press your spine into the towel and then curl so that you feel like your fingers are coming towards you. So do this a few times, just noticing it from the aspect of your whole pelvis. And if you feel like that blanket or that towel is too high or too low, just fix it. So when you press into the towel, now take your attention to your tailbone. It's a very curled up bone in the very bottom of your pelvis. So when you exhale and you press into that towel, that tailbone is curling in. And then when you inhale and lift away, your tailbone's pressing down into the blanket. So just practice this a few times. So if you need to look at me, I'm just doing the same thing. And try to keep going with your head down. So inhale, lift away from that towel. Press your tailbone. Now we're going to slow it down, slow-mo. Press into the towel and then curl your tailbone. So notice we're not doing bridges. Your heels aren't involved. You're not lifting any area of your spine off the floor. So that's usually a cue that gets confused. You think that when you inhale and lift, you lift your butt, but no, your butt stays down. You lift your spine and take it down. Just a few more. And then you can take that towel out. So just slide that towel out and take a second to feel your back release into the blanket without the towel there. Can you feel that? This question is big because when we do this movement, it's all so we can feel what's going on in our bodies. So just for example, you could have done rock and roll your pelvis probably 125 times doing that, but would you have felt much? You would have probably just felt that pulsing rocking. So what you want to do is feel deep inside your body. So did you feel those muscles relax when you let go? That's what we're looking for. All right. So now let your arms be out into a T shape with your palms facing up. So you've got your arms out to the sides, your palms are up, you're probably off your blanket. And then you do not have the towel underneath you anymore, but your knees are still bent. So we're going to do the undulations just like we did with the towel, and the change is our arms, and just see how this feels. So now when you inhale, lift your low back away from the mat and your chin will tuck down a little bit. And then when you exhale, press your low back down into the mat, your tailbone curls up, and let your chin go up. And then do it again. Inhale, lift your back, tuck your chin, press your tailbone. Exhale, come back up. So now keep going at your own pace, chin down, spine up. So those are the mechanics. And once you have that, you go on your own and go slow and make pauses. So if you have pain in your low back or hips, This is good medicine. And this is a chance for you to see if you can feel those spots that are painful and decide, like, is this right for it? What do I need to do? Because this is good medicine. All right. And then come back to center. Let your legs go out long. Let your arms go down by your sides and let your body relax. So another thing to keep in mind when we're doing this type of practice is that there's two big components. The first component, not necessarily the most important, is moving. So we're moving, and we're moving with the breath. So I'm going to entwine those, the vinyasa, moving with the breath. And then the other part, which is so important, is stillness. And that's what we're doing right now, incorporating the stillness after the movement so that you can ingest it. So feel your back, feel anything, just kind of change. And it could even be a mental thing too, just notice. So stay tuned in. Stay tuned to the inside channel. Good. All right. So now let your legs go out, stay out straight, and your arms will be down by your sides. So we're going to start to release the sacroiliac joint, the SI joint. That's the bone in your pelvis that often gets off kilter and causes shooting pains down your legs and all sorts of nasty things. So for this movement, just notice your legs. See if you can feel like they're about hip width distance apart. You don't have to get up and look, just sense that. And now take your awareness to your right leg and then point, keep your leg on the floor, but point your right toes up so that your right toes are pointing up and you feel your heel on the floor. So your heel's down, toes are up. And then when you inhale, reach your right heel away from you. Keep it on the floor, like you're sliding that right heel away from your body. That's the inhale. Exhale, let it come back. Release just release that right foot. We're going to go to the other side. Lift or point those left toes up. Reach your left heel away as you inhale and pull your left toes towards you. Lengthen out your left leg. Exhale and release. Now go back and do the right side, just like you did. Reach the heel, pull the toes, lengthen the leg. Coming back, and then do the other side. So notice as you slowly go back and forth. So when you reach your heel, go just as slow as you release your reach. So that's a slow mo. And notice what's happening to your pelvis. So when you reach your right foot, sense if your left pelvis is sliding up. Release your right foot, pull your left toes and reach your left heel. Your whole left leg slides and then your right side slips up. These are called up slips and down slips. So go back and forth. Right side reaches. Typically reaching on the inhale, releasing on the exhale. Do 2 more on each side. So when you reach that heel and pull those toes back, stretch the back of your heel and Achilles tendon. Notice if that slides that hip down a little more. All sorts of fun things you can find. All right. And now let your legs relax. Let your feet drop out however that you want. And now you're going to take your arms into a goalpost shape. I'm just going to slide down so you can see me. so that your arms are in a goalpost shape. That means your elbows are on the floor, the backs of your hands are on the floor, and then your fingernails are touching the floor, so your palms are up. So these are called arm slides. So you don't have to be rigid and keep your, elbows, pointy the whole time. Try to be soft, try to be fluid with your breath, so that when you take your next inhale, legs are going to stay relaxed, but start to reach the hand, keep it on the floor. Reach your right fingernails towards whatever's behind you. That's your inhale. And then exhale, slow motion. Start to bring your arm back to your starting point. And then go to the left side. Inhale. Reach this arm, and then reach it and exhale, slow motion, let it come back. So if you've watched and you know kind of what I'm talking about, and your whole arm is staying on the floor, then you can try it and keep your head down. So if you have issues on your shoulders, and so many people and many of us do, you can do a number of things. You could elevate that arm onto a pillow or a bolster. See if you can slide it just a little bit. You could take it more out to the side, or just wiggle your fingers. Do whatever you can to bring some movement. And this is probably what I would call the full expression, as you reach that arm way up and then take it back down. So, no goal in mind other than try to find your range with ease and no force. So then come back to center. Make a soft O shape with your arms so you don't feel like you've got a rigid shape going on. And now we're going to combine arms and legs same side. So this is called climbing the ladder, or side body release. So we're going to lengthen our side bodies. So when you inhale, reach your right foot heel, reach your right arm, same way as before. Everything's on the floor. And then when you exhale, slowly recoil back to your starting point. And then go to the other side. Inhale, reach your left arm, reach your left leg long, pull your left toes back. Exhale, coming back to center. So you go on your own, a few more, and feel it. Notice, have you broken ribs in the past, or have you had injuries to fingers and toes? So many things you could feel. And, notice. And don't be too hard on yourself. Good. All right. And so now, once again, let yourself be soft. Keep your arms where they are. Let your legs relax. Breathe in and out. And feel if you have more space on the sides of your body. Do you feel like the underarms have more space? The rib basket area has more space? Good. So now we're going to roll on, bend your left knee and let yourself roll onto your left side. So you're going to roll onto your left side and keep your left foot on the floor. So when I say bend your left knee, this time I meant bend your knee so that it's going up towards the ceiling. And then once you have it bent, you're just going to let yourself roll in onto your right hip. Keep rolling so you're on your side. Now, this is something that I should have mentioned earlier. But a small pillow like this, it's just a tiny little pillow that I didn't know what to do with until I realized that it is the perfect size for sideline. So a lot of times you see people's heads tilted down, and that can be fine, but I feel like your head should be lined up with the rest of your spine. So try to find a blanket or something that works for you in between your arm and your head, or else if you can't, you can hold your head in your hand, but still sometimes it feels like it's not quite right. So trying to get your arm lined up underneath you. Your underarm is right underneath you. Your other shoulder is above the lower, and then your hips are stacked, and then that left knee is pointing up. And now, as you think about that bottom leg, flex out through your right foot. So you feel the big toe side of your right foot pressing down, and then take your left hand in front of you like a kickstand. So this sideline movement is really helpful to open up this inner thigh on that upper leg, and also with helping with stability and trying to keep everything on its side. So just feel, again, that sense of this opening of the hip, the pressing out through the foot on the bottom. It's more dynamic than the sliding and gliding. We like to incorporate some more of these little more energetic movements just to get the opposition phase. Good. And then, as you keep that left hand forward, just let your chest tilt forward without letting this knee go forward. So trying to open a little more into this inner left thigh. So your chest tilts forward, and then bring it back to starting point. So keep pressing the left foot down, energize the right foot, lean forward. See if you go to a place where you can feel that inner left thigh coming back. Do this one more time. Good. And then we're going to roll onto your back again. So as you roll onto your back again, this time, let's bend both knees. So we've got both knees bent, and then you can keep that pillow just off to the side unless you like it. Otherwise, if you need to prop your head, you can. So take your arms into a T shape. So palms are up, knees are bent, and your feet are a little wider than your mat. So we're going to take it into what's called unwinding 2. So when you take your inhale, let both of your knees drop over to the left. And don't go too far so that your right shoulder pops up. You want to keep the right side down. And then use your exhale to bring your knees back up. Use your inhale, drop your knees over to the right. And then use your exhale to bring your knees back up. So now you can keep going. Head stays down, hands stay put, facing up, arms are just soft. Inhale as you take the legs over. Exhale, bringing them back up. So taking it into the hip region a little more. The next time you drop your knees over to the left, you can pause. Use your block if you feel like you can't take your knees down too far. If there's any impinging, you can prop your knees with the block. Otherwise, let them drop and pause. And then press your right inner foot into the mat and reach your right thigh away from you. Arch your back. Nice inhale. And then when you exhale, take that back down and bring your knees back up. Inhale your knees over to the right. Press your left foot. Nice stretch. Exhale, bring your knees back up. So that's something you can add on to this unwinding series, is when you drop your knees to the side, the top knee can reach towards the diagonal and then come back up and through. So you take it a few more times on each side, reaching for the diagonal and back. And reaching for the diagonal and back. Good. And now once you get back into the center, bring your knees in towards your chest and your thighs. Wrap your arms around your legs. Curl your head up towards your knees. And then go ahead and let yourself empty out again. So let your legs go long. And let yourselves breathe and feel the support underneath you. And any residual tingles or just like the pulses in your hips. Take 2 more nice, slow, full breaths. Okay, so now we are going to work with unwinding 1, which is a really sweet twist for the center body. And it also helps to lengthen your psoas muscles. So it's a really important pose or movement pattern for that. So what we'll do is start by bending, bend your left knee. I'm going to bend my left knee and take your arms into a T shape. So this pose progresses as you learn the basics of it. So first thing you'll do is you'll just kind of investigate your left foot. Your right leg is relaxed. Just relax your palms and your shoulders. Head is soft. So when you feel your right foot on the blanket, start to swing your left foot on the blanket. Start to swing your left knee over your right thigh. Your left knee crosses the thigh. You're still on your back on the mat. You kind of roll onto your right hip a little bit, and then exhale brings you back to the starting point where your left knee's pointing up and your left foot's on the floor. So your arms and upper torso stay put, and you're working the lower half. So here we go. Inhale, press the left foot, drop that knee across. Nice and slow. And then when you exhale, let that knee slowly make its way back up. Your foot is back in its starting point. So scope it out for 2 more. Go slow. And you don't have to take it the same place each time. I encourage you not to. So when you cross it over, maybe move your foot down a little and see what that feels like. And then as you continue and start to get a little more warmed up in your back, the more you press your foot and come into your lengthening of that left thigh, arch your back and roll a little more onto your right hip and really lengthen the thigh. That left shoulder might come up a little off the floor, and then exhale back down. So you can see where you can get pretty deep into the muscles in your pelvis. So keep going, pelvis, and also right next to your lumbar spine, low back. Now come back to the starting point. Let that knee point straight up. And then keep your right arm as is, but let your left arm be in a soft O shape, the palm facing up. So we're going to add the arm slide as we cross the knee over. So you'll see the repetition of these movements throughout the different poses that we go through. So it works on the inhale. Reach the knee over and across like you did, except slide your left arm up and try to reach your left fingers away from you. And then when you exhale, you'll slide your left arm back and the left knee back up to starting point. And you're off. So keep going nice and slow. Press your foot. See what it feels like to press your foot. Slide your hand and try to keep your right shoulder down. But how much length can you get between your left knee and fingers? And then slowly come back. You can do one more if you'd like. And then when you come back, let that leg go out straight before we go to the other side. Bring your arms both out into that T shape. Take a minute, a moment, feel your left leg. And now bend your right knee. So we're going to set up for the side two. So the right knee bends. Right now your right arm and left arm are both out to the sides. And now you're going to press your right foot into your blanket as you drop your right knee over your left thigh. And then exhale, bring everything back to starting. So do a few, scoping out the range, I call it. So just kind of see what's happening as those muscles start to get more length. And as you get familiar, press a little more into the foot and reach the knee a little more. So if that's working for you and the shoulder of your right arm is starting to come up, bend your right elbow and then you can add that slide. So when you cross your right knee over, inhale, slide your right arm up, reach, exhale, and try to bring it back down as slow as you took it up, or slower if you went too fast. Go ahead and do two more like this. And then let your legs go out long. Good. So one more that we'll work with today, and this will be a spinal undulation 2, which we do often in our hatha and the other classes at One Tree. So it's a little different than the first one we did in that we're going to arch the neck and move the upper torso differently. The pelvis is going to do the same thing as it did before. So if you want to look, just remember that your pelvis stays down. When you inhale, it's that arching away from the back as if that towel were there. And then when you exhale, press it down. So think about your tailbone curling in. So if you were a dog and you actually had a tail. So on the inhale phase, you'd be wagging your tail. And then when you exhale and you curl that tailbone in, you're like a dog that probably got in trouble. So your tailbone's curled in. So that might be a way to help understand this motion. So now take your hands behind your head and interlace your hands, your fingers, so that you can rest your hands in your head in your hands and feel the elbows out to the sides. So just let your head feel like it's got a little mattress, and then your elbows are wide. So when you start, you want to feel a lot of space between your elbows and collarbones. So we'll start by inhaling. And this time, when you inhale, you're going to lift your chin and you're going to arch your back at the same time. So you're looking behind you. And then when you exhale, you're going to start to curl your head up as you curl that tail in. So now we're going to inhale, lift your happy tail out, press it down, lift your chin, open your elbows, and then exhale, curl your tail in, curl your arms in, and keep going. So from here, just press and lift and open on your inhale, and then the exhale, engage the muscles in your low pelvis to get that bonus core work. Do 3 more. Slow and steady. Try not to use momentum, even if it means you don't go up as high. You will eventually, if your body allows. All right. Good. So one more time, bring your knees in towards you and roll from side to side. So feel your pelvis roll back and forth, and then make little circles with your knees. They're together, and then do your circles opposite way. Just have your arms wrapped around them. And just take a second here. If you'd like to spend time in Shavasana, you can. Otherwise, you can roll to the side, let your knees drop over, your arm is for your head, and then as you press yourselves back up, put yourself back up. Just take a moment to see how everything feels now after that first opening class of the Slow and Flow Satya Basics. So I encourage you to read the blog that I wrote that goes along with this class, and I'll probably have another one in the next week or two, so that the blog explains in writing what Satya means, what it is, and a little bit about how I practice and how I use it in my everyday life. So thank you for practicing with me today, and I will hopefully see you soon, either here or in studio. Thanks a lot, and bye.